Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Today I am working on a double page layout that includes some mixed media. I don't tackle this project quite too often, but I decided that I needed some mixed media on this page. My son and daughter were doing 4-H many years ago, and the project that they were in was called the Puppet Project, and they made their own puppets along with their own puppet theater, and then they put on a puppet show. So this particular layout features my son with his puppet, and he wanted to make an owl. And so the photo there on the right hand side, he's sitting with his owl puppet looking up at the camera, and then on the left hand side there are some pictures of his puppet with the other puppets that were made by other kids in the project working behind the puppet theater and putting together their puppet show. So given he used a lot of feathers on his puppet's head, I went ahead and wanted to use a lot of feathers on this layout. I had these feathers that are used for a mask. They've been sitting on my desk for a while. I hadn't used them for anything, and I wanted to go ahead and get those on my page somehow. So I went ahead and laid them out, and then I decided to use some Distress ink in black soot, and then I had a Versa, I guess it's Versa Magic mini little stamp pad in, I believe it's the cement color, which is just a gray. So I'm going to go ahead and rub over those and create a resist with those feathers, and then once I get those down on the page, I'm going to put some mist on it, and I decided to use the dark charcoal gray one from Heidi Swapp. I don't remember the name of it. If you're interested, leave me a comment down below and I can look it up for you. So I went ahead and used that and sprinkled some of that on there, and then once that dried, I peeled them all off, and I did the exact same treatment on the opposite page, and going in the horizontal direction rather than the vertical direction. So on the right hand page, my photos will be horizontal and the mixed media will be vertical, and then it will be the opposite on the left hand page. So I'm kind of working backwards from the right to the left. For whatever reason, I'm not sure why I decided to do that, but I guess maybe because my focal picture that I wanted everything to look at is on the right hand page. It's the one of my son by himself. So in this photo he is probably I'm guessing about 9 years old, and they used styrofoam balls as the head for their puppets, and then they used felt and glue and all kinds of different things like the feathers and googly eyes and whatnot to create their puppets. So I had some old border papers laying around. I'm not even sure where these came from. Actually, I think they're from SEI, but I couldn't swear to that, so don't quote me on that. And I wanted to add some more layers to the piece of turquoise paper that I had already punched with the notebook paper punch. So I'm going to go ahead and layer those up, and I'm going to do the same on the opposite page, just going in the vertical direction rather than the horizontal direction. You can see there that I'm not really sure if I want the border to be up or down. I keep flipping it back and forth and trying it out. Eventually I settle on the downward position so that it is more like a shelf for the entire piece of paper there and for the photo. And I really like using my T-square ruler to line these types of things up. Certain things I like them to be a little bit off and a little bit wonky, but for some reason I do like the borders and the base of the photos to be straight. And if you don't have a T-square ruler, I highly recommend getting one. They're really inexpensive. You can get them at Michael's, you can get them on Amazon. They're just really handy and really inexpensive. Sometimes I even use it to put my thickers on, so I'll use it more like one of the thicker alignment guides. So I've had my T-square ruler long before they had thicker alignment guides. So sometimes I even put a stamp on it and use it as an acrylic block. It's just a very handy thing to have. Now that I've got my photos situated and the borders all where I want them, I am going to go ahead and start pulling out embellishments and figuring out where I want to put those. Oh, I've got to try a couple more borders here because I think I want something at the top of the strip of paper there, but I decided I didn't like the border. It had a lot of little pieces to punch out. It's kind of like almost like a braid, and it just didn't look right. So I gave up on that idea and decided to punch some circles. So I have this punch. It's I think this is like 1.5 or 2. Actually, I think it's a 2-inch punch. And I'm going to go ahead and punch out all those circles and create what looks like a scalloped border along the top and the side of the 2 areas that don't have borders on them. I really like how that came together. I'm going to end up cutting all those in half so that it just looks like a large scallop. I do have a large scallop punch. It's not quite this large, but it wasn't handy. I would have had to gone over to pick it up at my mom's house, which is next door, and I didn't want to have to do that, so I was kind of lazy. I already had my circle punches handy, so decided to go with that. And plus, I do really like the size of this. It's a lot larger than my large circle punch or large scalloped border. It just gives it a little bit of visual interest and kind of a fun, more playful look to it, which is good because in these photos my kids are pretty young, so why not be playful with it. And then I decide I need to create a seam that goes between those half circles and the paper that they're butted up against. So I start with this turquoise paper and I end up using the opposite side. I didn't like that the barrier was quite so strong, so I used the flip side of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and use some liquid glue because the strip is so narrow. My tape runner on my ATG gun was a little bit too wide for it, and I just thought it'd be easier to go ahead and glue it down with this tonic glue. And it seems like this layout is a little bit of trial and error. So I decided I need to have the photos backed on something. So they needed to be matted so that they would pop off the page a little bit more. And in order to do that, the paper that I have was a little bit too small to fit behind the photos. So I just end up taking a 1/4 inch off of, I believe, two, maybe 3 sides of it, so that they're just a tiny bit smaller, and it will allow me to use that one piece of paper to back all 3 photos. So I think that kind of creates a little bit of oomph to the photos. It makes them stand out a little bit more, and it was definitely something that it was needed. Yeah, it looks much better in my opinion. Kind of pop off the page a little bit more rather than just starting to blend in. It gives them a landing spot, especially the 2 that are on the left-hand side that are kind of hanging off of the border strip and the feather paper. So now I'm going to go ahead and get out a bunch of embellishments that I think might work. And once I narrow down what I want to use, I will go ahead and start building my embellishment clusters. If you watch my videos regularly, you might know that I've cut most of my embellishments apart and sorted them by color into these little black boxes, which has helped me to be a lot faster when it comes time to embellishing my layouts. There are some things such as Christmas or baby that I have left separate because I'm not using Christmas or baby on every single layout, so those will remain separate in my stash. Now I know I am going to be covering up some of the feather mixed media, and that's okay by me. It still gives you that visual, the visual that there is feathers in the background, but they're not quite as prominent, especially on the left-hand page. I believe I'm inking everything with Black Soot Distress ink. And a lot of times I will cut things down just like you saw there so that I can use the opposite end of it in another location. It kind of gives you the 2-for-1 advantage. You have 2 items that match, but you only had to buy one of them. So I had pulled out a whole bunch of glittery frames and flowers. You see them on the top right hand side of the screen there. I didn't really end up using any of those. I don't even know where I got them. I have stuff in my stash from ages ago, and so they remain in my stash, and I am looking for a good place to use them. Maybe I'll use them on a 4-H layout featuring my daughter. They're a little bit more feminine. They are really pretty, but they just didn't work out for this layout, so they'll go back in the box. I've got the words Be You and True Story, and I will end up doing some journaling on this page. Most of you who watch me regularly scrapbook know that I don't always journal on camera, and that is because, like I said, this is a layout about my son in this 4-H project. I have a layout to do about my daughter in this project, and some of the different places that they took their puppet stage and puppets and competed. And so I want to go ahead and keep those kind of in a series, and so I will do all of my journaling when I get them all together so that the story is one complete story and it's not really fragmented. And a lot of times I tend to kind of repeat the story over again if I journal on this layout, and then maybe in a month I do the layout with my daughter on it. I might tell the same exact story. So in order to avoid that, I wait until I get them all done, and then when they go in the album in order, that's when I do a lot of the journaling. Now if it is a layout that's just a one-off standalone type of layout, then I will go ahead and journal at the time that I do it. So I decided to use a couple of the puffy bird stickers and birdhouse stickers. I thought it was kind of fitting because and now granted an owl is a bird, it doesn't have a birdhouse necessarily, but I thought it was fitting for the purpose, and they looked really cute anyway, so I mean, why not? Birds have feathers, so might as well put them on the layout. And you can see me putting a lot of my embellishments back in the box. This is just the greens, and there are a ton of them. I really need to start working through a lot of this stuff before I invest in a lot more embellishments. And I didn't really realize I had that many embellishments until I started sorting by color. So note to self, if you don't think you have a lot, try sorting them by color. You'll be quite surprised at what you do have. As we wrap up here, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Stick around for the close-ups. If you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit like down below and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again.